The 1971 United States Kennedy half-dollar holds special significance in American numismatics because it marked the first year that the half-dollar was minted without silver, transitioning fully to a copper-nickel-clad composition after the partial silver issues of 1965 to 1970. The 1971 coin is therefore a milestone piece representing the end of circulating silver coinage in the U.S. and the beginning of modern clad half-dollars. On the obverse, designed by Gilroy Roberts, appears the left-facing bust of President John F. Kennedy, created shortly after his assassination in 1963 to symbolize national mourning and unity. Above his head is the word Liberty, which the user wrote as library, but the correct inscription is Liberty, spread around the rim. While the motto "In God We Trust" is positioned below Kennedy's neck and divided by the portrait, with the date 1971 centered at the bottom. The coin was minted at both the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, D, with a smaller mintage from San Francisco, S, for proof coins only. Circulation strikes include roughly 155 million from Philadelphia and 302 million from Denver, making the 1971 D the more common of the two. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, features a detailed adaptation of the presidential seal, including an eagle with outstretched wings holding an olive branch in its right talon symbolizing peace, and a bundle of arrows in its left talon symbolizing defensive strength. Around the eagle appear 50 stars representing the states, and above the eagle's head is a glory of rays encircling a constellation of stars. Encircling the entire design is the inscription United States of America at the top and half-dollar at the bottom, while the motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, appears on a banner above the eagle, reinforcing the coin's role as both currency and a symbolic statement of national identity. In terms of metal composition, the 1971 half-dollar contains 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it the modern clad, silvery appearance but no intrinsic silver value. Its weight is 11.34 grams, its diameter is 30.6 millimeters, and its edge is reeded. Because so many were minted, and because the date marks the beginning of a clad era rather than a low mintage variety, the 1971 half-dollar is usually worth only face value, 50 cents, in circulated condition, although uncirculated examples, especially ones with strong luster or high-grade certification from grading companies such as PCGS or NGC, may reach values from a few dollars up to $50 to $200 plus for exceptional MS 67 or MS 68 examples. The 1971 D is known for certain striking and die variety anomalies, including the famous 1971 D no FG variety, where the designer's initials FG for Frank Gasparro on the reverse are missing or extremely faint due to die polishing. These coins can be significantly more valuable depending on clarity of the missing initials. Proof versions minted in San Francisco, with an S mint mark, include both standard clad proofs and a scarce few early strikes with unusual characteristics, making them interesting to collectors. Historically, the Kennedy half-dollar remains one of the most recognizable modern U.S. coins, created to honor a popular president and intended originally for widespread circulation. However, by the 1970s, half-dollars saw less use in everyday transactions due to inflation, vending machine incompatibility, and the rise of paper currency and quarter-dollar dominance. As a result, the 1971 half-dollar circulates less commonly today, but it survives in large numbers in coin rolls, collections, and bank vaults, where it remains an accessible and educational coin for beginning collectors. Overall, the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar represents a turning point in U.S. coinage history, combining symbolic national imagery, the enduring mottos In God We Trust and E pluribus unum, the legacy of President Kennedy, and the economic transition away from silver, making it a historically rich yet widely available coin that continues to attract interest from both new the next top. The 1972 United States half-dollar, commonly known as the Kennedy half-dollar, is a copper-nickel-clad coin struck by the U.S. Mint between 1965 and 2001 using the same basic design introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy, who had been assassinated in November 1963. The obverse of the 1972 half-dollar prominently displays the left-facing portrait of Kennedy created by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts, a design based on the inaugural medal he sculpted. Around the upper rim appears the word Liberty, with the letters spaced widely enough to frame the president's head. The "In God We Trust" motto positioned horizontally below the chin, and the date 1972 centered at the lower edge. The portrait is smooth but sharply modeled, with attention to Kennedy's hair and facial structure, while the motto's lettering reflects the long-established American principle of national faith that Congress required on coins since the 19th century. The reverse of the 1972 half-dollar is equally symbolic, featuring the heraldic eagle design by Frank Gasparro, which shows a detailed eagle with outstretched wings clutching an olive branch of peace in its right talon, and a bundle of 13 arrows representing defense in its left. Above the eagle's head floats a ring of stars forming an arc of the original 13 colonies, and above all of this is a burst of rays surrounding a central star-shaped field, symbolizing America's emergence from unity and struggle. Encircling the top rim is the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, expressing the principle that the United States is formed from diverse states and peoples. Along the outer edge appears United States of America and the denomination half-dollar, both engraved in bold serif text. Unlike the 1964 version, which contained 90% silver, the 1972 half-dollar was struck in copper-nickel clad, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, resulting in a total weight of 11.34 grams and a diameter of 30.6 millimeters. Number 1972 half-dollars were produced for general circulation at the San Francisco Mint. Those were proof coins only, while the Philadelphia and Denver mints created hundreds of millions for circulation, making them common today. Although circulated examples hold only face value today, uncirculated or high-grade specimens, especially those with strong strikes or unusual die characteristics, can appeal to collectors. Among specialists, small varieties such as minor die cracks, double die obverse elements, or weak strike zones are studied for attribution, while the overall historical context of the Kennedy series keeps the 1972 issue popular as an accessible entry into American numismatics. The coin stands not only as everyday currency of its era, but also as a national memorial to Kennedy, reflecting the political climate of the early 1970s, the continued tension of the Cold War, and the American public's lasting admiration for the late president. Its inscriptions, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and E pluribus unum, tie the coin to the deep constitutional, cultural, and philosophical themes that have appeared on U.S. currency since the nation's earliest years, turning even a common 1972 half-dollar into a compact piece of historical symbolism representing unity, faith, federal identity, and remembrance. The next top. The 1973 United States of America Kennedy half-dollar is a circulation coin minted at the Denver Mint, identified by the D mint mark located on the obverse just below President John F. Kennedy's portrait and to the right of his neck. This coin, part of the ongoing Kennedy half-dollar series first introduced in 1964 to honor the late president after his assassination, is composed of copper-nickel clad, featuring an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it a distinct silver-gray appearance without containing actual silver. The obverse was designed by Gilroy Roberts, presenting Kennedy's left-facing bust with the motto, "In God We Trust," placed horizontally beneath the portrait, the date 1973 directly below, and the word Liberty curving around the upper rim in bold lettering. On the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, appears the heraldic president's seal, a detailed eagle with a shield on its chest, clutching an olive branch in its right talon, and a bundle of arrows in its left, representing the nation's preference for peace while maintaining readiness for defense. Surrounding the eagle is a ring of 50 stars, symbolizing all states in the Union, and above the eagle's head floats a banner bearing the national motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, reflecting the unity of the states forming a single nation. The inscriptions United States of America and half-dollar circle the coin's upper and lower rims, respectively. Although over 83 million 1973 D half dollars were struck, meaning it is not rare in general. Most were not widely released into circulation because the half dollar had already fallen out of common daily use by the early 1970s, causing many examples to survive with strong detail. Collectors often seek coins with a full, sharp strike, especially those where the details of Kennedy's hair, the feathers on the eagle, and the mottos are heavily defined. Such coins show crisp lettering on "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum," which adds visual appeal. The coin is widely collected as part of date and mitmark sets, and while it typically holds modest face value plus worth in circulated condition, pristine uncirculated pieces or third-party graded examples can be desired for typesets, historical displays, or Kennedy memorabilia collections. Overall, the 1973 D. Kennedy half dollar stands as a classic example of modern U.S. coinage, combining patriotic symbolism, presidential legacy, and detailed artistic engraving that reflects mid-20th century American design ideals. The next top. The 1974 D. United St. half dollar is part of the Kennedy half dollar series, first issued in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy following his assassination, and the 1974 D issue represents one of the abundant circulation strike examples produced at the Denver Mint, identifiable by the D. Mint mark located on the obverse just to the right of Kennedy's neck truncation. This coin retains the well-established design created by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts, obverse, and Assistant Engraver Frank Gasparo, reverse. The obverse features the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy, surrounded by the inscriptions Liberty, along the upper arc, with the national motto, "In God We Trust," placed horizontally across the lower field, separated by Kennedy's neck and chin. This placement became standard after 1964 and is often examined by collectors for strike clarity, weakness, or die deterioration. At the bottom of the obverse is the date 1974, marking the 10th year of the Kennedy half dollar series. The reverse displays the modified presidential seal, which includes an eagle with outstretched wings clutching an olive branch in its right talon and 13 arrows in its left talon, symbolizing the nation's commitment to peace and readiness for defense. Above the eagle's head is a field of stars arranged in an arc, and surrounding the entire motif is the statutory legend, United States of America, across the top border, and the denomination, half dollar, along the bottom, with a scroll bearing E Pluribus Unum, appearing above the eagle's head just below the upper cluster of stars. This famous motto, meaning "out of many, one," has appeared on U.S. coinage for generations and is an important identifying feature that must be crisp and legible in higher-grade examples. Like other clad half dollars minted from 1971 through 2000, the 1974 D is composed not of silver, but of a copper-nickel clad alloy. The outer layers consist of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to an inner core of pure copper, giving the coin its familiar silvery appearance with a distinctive copper-colored edge when viewed from the side. It has a standard diameter of 30.6 millimeters, a thickness of 2.15 millimeters, and a weight of 11.34 grams. The Denver Mint struck over 79 million 1974 D half dollars, making this date quite common in circulated condition, although obtaining pieces in true gem condition, MS 65 and above, can be more challenging due to contact marks, bag marks, and inconsistent strike sharpness typical of large volume clad coinage. Numismatists also pay attention to the quality of Kennedy's hair details, particularly the strands above the forehead and near the part, as well as the clarity of the eagle's feathers and the sharpness of E Pluribus Unum, all of which help determine grade and value. While circulated pieces generally hold only face value, uncirculated or high-grade certified pieces can carry modest premiums, and exceptionally high-grade examples may be desirable to registry collectors. A special point of interest in the broader 1974 Kennedy half dollar series is the existence of the 1974 double die obverse, DDO, variety found on some Philadelphia minted coins, not the 1974 D, which has caused many collectors to inspect all 1974 halves carefully, even though the DDO variety does not exist for the Denver issue. Collectors sometimes inspect 1974 D coins for other minor anomalies, die cracks, double lettering, or planchet flaws. However, most 1974 D halves are considered standard strikes with no notable major varieties. Historically, the Kennedy half-dollar circulated actively through the 1960s, but saw a sharp decline in everyday use after the public withdrew large quantities of half-dollars for saving, expecting silver content. By 1974, although the coins were still minted for circulation, they were already less common in daily transactions, contributing to the series' partial shift from a working coin to a collector-focused issue. Altogether, the 1974 D. Kennedy half-dollar remains a widely available and affordable collectible that encapsulates the ongoing story of U.S. coinage after the Silver Era, displaying the iconic national mottos, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "E Pluribus Unum," along with the enduring national symbolism of the presidential seal, offering both historical and artistic value for modern numismatists. The next top. The 1978 United States half-dollar, part of the long-running Kennedy half-dollar series, represents both a continuation of American numismatic tradition and a reflection of the political and cultural climate of the late 20th century. First introduced in 1964 shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the coin was originally struck in 90% silver and intended as a memorial piece, but by 1971, 7 years before the 1978 issue, it had transitioned to the copper-nickel clad composition, 75% copper, 25% nickel, over a pure copper core, which is the same material used for the 1978 coin. The obverse, designed by U.S. Mint chief engraver Gilroy Roberts, prominently features Kennedy's left-facing portrait, and directly to the left of his profile is the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase appearing on U.S. coinage since the 19th century and mandated on all American currency by the mid-20th century. The date, 1978, appears at the bottom center, while the mint mark, either D for Denver or S for San Francisco, appears above the date. Philadelphia-made coins of that time carried no mint mark. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, displays the heraldic eagle inspired by the presidential seal, a bald eagle with outstretched wings clutching arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other, symbolizing America's readiness for war and preference for peace. Encircling the eagle is the iconic Latin motto, "E Pluribus Unum," meaning, "out of many, one," representing the unity of the states and the diversity of the nation. Surrounding the main design is a ring of 50 stars, symbolizing the states of the Union, with United States of America arched above and half-dollar below. In 1978, the U.S. Mint produced the coin in large quantities, primarily for circulation, with most examples showing typical strike quality for the late 1970s, characterized by somewhat muted detail in Kennedy's hair and the eagle's feathers due to high-speed coining presses and mass production priorities. The half-dollar, once widely used in commerce, had by the 1970s become far less common in daily transactions, largely because the public preferred smaller denominations or dollar bills, and many half-dollars from the period saw limited wear because they tended to be stored in drawers or bankrolls rather than actively spent. Collectors often evaluate a 1978 Kennedy half-dollar based on mint mark, strike quality, luster, and preservation. Well-preserved, brilliant, uncirculated. Examples are abundant and inexpensive, while exceptionally high-grade certified specimens can command more value, particularly those grading MS 66 or higher. Proof versions, minted in San Francisco, feature mirrored fields and frosted devices, showcasing the detailed artistry of Gasparo's and Roberts's designs. Although the coin contains no silver and is technically a common date, it holds historical importance as part of an iconic American series, a tribute to a modern president, and a continuation of national symbols and mottos that appear on U.S. coins. Its inscriptions, "In God We Trust," on the obverse and "E Pluribus Unum," on the reverse, link it to centuries of American political identity, while its imagery places it firmly within the heritage of U.S. numismatics. For collectors, The 1978 half-dollar serves as an accessible and meaningful piece representing the transition from silver coinage to modern clad coinage, the evolution of public usage of the denomination, and the enduring cultural memory of John F. Kennedy within American history. The next top. The 1985 United States half-dollar, commonly known as the Kennedy half-dollar, is a copper-nickel-clad coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint and bears the P Mint mark, created as part of the ongoing series introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy following his assassination. While 1985 had no half-dollars released into general circulation because circulation demand for the denomination had essentially vanished during the 1970s, millions were still produced for collectors in mint sets, making the 1985 P neither rare nor especially valuable in average condition. On the obverse, heads side, sculptor Gilroy Roberts' portrait of John F. Kennedy dominates the design, showing a left-facing bust with sharp, modernist contours. Above the portrait arcs the word Liberty, with Kennedy's hair overlapping some letters, a stylistic choice that has always been part of the original design. Beneath the chin appears the national motto, In God We Trust, split into two lines with In God to the left and We Trust to the right, balanced by the date 1985 centered along the lower rim. To the right of the bust, just above the date, sits the P Mint mark, indicating production at Philadelphia. The reverse, tails side, designed by Frank Asparo, displays the presidential coat of arms, a powerful heraldic eagle with a shield across its chest, clutching an olive branch with 13 leaves and berries in its right talon, and a bundle of 13 arrows in its left, symbolizing both peace and readiness to defend the nation. Above the eagle's head is a banner inscribed with the traditional motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, and encircling the entire design is a ring of 50 stars, representing the states of the Union. The inscriptions United States of America and half-dollar form the upper and lower rims of the coin, respectively. The 1985 P half-dollar is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it a silver-colored surface. It weighs 11.34 grams, measures 30.6 millimeters in diameter, and features a reeded, grooved edge. Even though its design had existed for 2 decades by 1985, details varied slightly from year to year due to die wear, minting techniques, and hub changes, which is why collectors sometimes look for stronger strikes, full details in the hair, crisp lettering, and clean surfaces free of bag marks or scratches. In circulated condition, the coin usually holds face value, but high-grade uncirculated examples, especially those graded MS 65 or higher, can carry modest numismatic premiums. While not rare, the 1985 P. Kennedy half-dollar remains a meaningful piece for collectors because it represents a period when the denomination was fading from everyday commerce yet still produced for hobbyists, preserving one of the United States Mint's most iconic designs and continuing the legacy of President Kennedy's memorias. The next top. The 1988 P. Kennedy half-dollar is part of the long-running series first introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated the previous year, and although the early issues were struck in 90% silver. By 1988, the coin had long since transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its familiar silver-gray sheen without actual silver bullion value. Minted at the Philadelphia Mint, the coin carries the P Mint mark located on the obverse beneath Kennedy's bust near the truncation of the neck. The obverse design by former chief engraver Gilroy Roberts features the left-facing profile of Kennedy with the motto, In God We Trust, split on both sides of the portrait and the date 1988 centered below, while the word Liberty arcs around the upper rim, with the letters spaced widely in the dramatic style characteristic of the series. The reverse, created by Frank Asparo, displays a modified version of the presidential seal, showing an eagle with spread wings grasping both arrows, symbolizing readiness for war, and an olive branch symbolizing peace, surrounded by a circle of 50 stars representing the states, with the national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, on a ribbon above the eagle's head, and the inscriptions, United States of America and half dollar, displayed around the outer edge. The Philadelphia Mint produced tens of millions of these coins for circulation, far more than collectors demanded, meaning that most 1988 P half dollars remain extremely common, are readily available in circulated condition, and typically trade only at face value unless found in superb mint state grades. High-grade examples, however, especially those graded MS 66, MS 67, or better by professional services such as PCGS or NGC, can command notable premiums because coins from the late 1980s often show weak strikes, bag marks, or dull luster due to mass production, making sharply struck, clean, brilliant examples relatively scarce. Collectors also look for varieties and errors, and although 1988 is not famous for major Kennedy half-dollar error types, some minor anomalies such as off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes, or misaligned dies can add interest and value depending on severity. Small die chips near lettering or in Kennedy's hair are known, but usually add only modest premiums. In terms of historical context, these coins circulated lightly compared to other denominations because by the late 20th century the half-dollar had fallen out of everyday use, leading most pieces to be stored in banks or returned to Federal Reserve vaults, which ironically preserved many examples in decent condition. Still, the coin holds symbolic value for many Americans because of Kennedy's enduring legacy and the iconic, instantly recognizable design. For collectors assembling date and mint mark runs or studying modern clad coinage, the 1988 P issue illustrates typical characteristics of late 1980s minting: abundant supply, low silver content, none, and high durability due to its clad construction, which resists tarnish better than earlier silver issues. As a collectible today, the 1988 P half-dollar serves as a widely accessible piece of modern U.S. coinage history, meaningful for beginners and enthusiasts alike, capturing the blend of artistry, national symbolism, and technological mint evolution that defines the Kennedy series, while the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum reinforce the enduring themes of American identity and the long tradition of mottos present on U.S. coins since the 19th century. The next top. The 1992 P United States half-dollar, part of the long-running Kennedy half-dollar series, is a clad circulation coin minted by the Philadelphia Mint, identifiable by the P mint mark located just above the date on the obverse. Although half-dollars were still struck for circulation in 1992, they were produced in relatively low quantities compared to earlier decades because public demand for half-dollars declined sharply after the 1980s, resulting in many examples remaining in bank storage, rather than entering everyday use. The design continues the iconic 1964 introduction style created shortly after President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Kennedy by Gilroy Roberts, sharply defined with strong hair detail on higher-grade specimens, accompanied by the motto, In God We Trust, split on both sides of Kennedy's neck truncation, with the date 1992 centered below. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, displays the presidential seal, a heraldic eagle positioned beneath a ring of 50 stars symbolizing the states, clutching an olive branch in its right talon, and a bundle of arrows in its left to represent the nation's commitment to both peace and readiness for defense. Above the eagle floats a scroll bearing the motto, E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one, while the outer rim bears the inscriptions United States of America along the top and half-dollar along the bottom. The 1992 P half-dollar is composed of copper-nickel clad, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to an inner core of pure copper, producing a total weight of 11.34 grams and a diameter of 30.61 millimeters, with a reeded edge typical of American silver substitute coins of the era. While most 1992 P examples hold primarily face value worth in circulated condition due to their large mintage and modern composition, uncirculated pieces with strong luster, especially those graded MS 65 and above by major grading organizations, are considered desirable by Kennedy half-dollar specialists. Coins with full bell lines do not apply to Kennedy halves, but collectors often pay attention to strike sharpness in Kennedy's hair and feather detail on the eagle as indicators of quality. No major varieties are recognized for this year, though minor die differences, such as slight variations in mitmark shape or die polishing lines, may interest specialists in die-state studies. For most collectors, the 1992 P is valued as part of building a full modern half-dollar Dayton mitmark set rather than as a rare standalone rarity, yet it remains historically meaningful as a continuation of the Kennedy legacy, an American cultural icon minted during a transitional era when the coin's circulation use was fading into a primarily numismatic role. Thus, the 1992 P half-dollar represents both a physical piece of U.S. monetary history and a symbol of mid-late 20th century American identity preserved in modern clad coinage. DJ, the next top. The United States of America 2001 D. Kennedy half-dollar is a circulating commemorative coin struck at the Denver Mint, bearing the D. Mint mark on the obverse just below Kennedy's bust, and it represents one of the modern issues of the series first introduced in 1964 following President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Kennedy designed by Gilroy Roberts, accompanied by the inscriptions Liberty, arching across the top, and In God We Trust, placed prominently to the lower left and right of the profile, with the date 2001 along the rim at the bottom. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, displays a modified version of the presidential seal, showing a heraldic eagle with a shield on its chest, clutching an olive branch symbolizing peace in its right talon, and a bundle of arrows representing strength and readiness in its left. Above the eagle floats a scroll bearing the national motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one. And surrounding the design are the inscriptions United States of America across the upper rim and $half across the lower rim. The 2001 D issue is notable because by 2001 Kennedy half-dollars were no longer widely released into general circulation, with most coins produced primarily for collectors. As a result, many pieces survive in uncirculated condition. The coin is composed of copper-nickel clad, 75% copper, 25% nickel over a pure copper core, weighs 11.34 grams, has a 30.61 millimeters diameter, and features a reeded edge. The Denver Mint struck approximately 19.5 million of the 2001 D half-dollars, making it common overall, although high-grade specimens certified MS 67 or higher can be relatively scarce and desirable among collectors. In terms of aesthetics, the Liberty lettering and Kennedy's hair details are key indicators of strike strength, while on the reverse, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, shield lines, and the sharpness of the tiny stars surrounding the rim play an important part in evaluating quality. There are no major die varieties widely recognized for the 2001 D half-dollar, though minor die chips or increases in die fatigue can create small collectible anomalies, occasionally referred to informally as die breaks or cuts. Because the coin belongs to the modern clad era, it does not contain silver unless it is part of a special proof silver set, which would bear an S mint mark, not D. So a 2001 D half-dollar is not a silver coin. In the coin collecting hobby, examples are valued mostly for condition, and most circulate grade or typical uncirculated 2001 D coins hold nominal value above face only when pristine. However, pristine mint state pieces, especially those with strong luster or designated full details, can attract higher interest. The mottos In God We Trust and E pluribus unum reaffirm the long-standing American tradition of combining national symbolism with historical continuity, making the Kennedy half-dollar a blend of modern memorialization and classical U.S. heraldry. Even though the coin seldom appears in everyday change today, its large size, distinct portrait, and enduring historical context allow it to remain a popular collectible and a representative piece of late 20th and early 21st century.